Picture this. I'm standing in the kitchen, staring at a chipped coffee mug that's been sitting in the sink for 3 days. It's not just a mug. It's a tiny, jagged reminder of how things have shifted. My name's Eliza. I'm 34, and I've spent the last decade building a life with Drew, the man who could once make me laugh with just a glance. We used to be the kind of couple who'd stay up until dawn, tangled in conversation about everything from the meaning of life to the best way to make grilled cheese. His hand would find mine without even thinking, and those quiet moments, sitting on the couch, no words needed, felt like the safest place in the world. But now I can count the real conversations we've had this month on one hand. Our words are clipped, functional. Did you pay the electric bill? Can you grab milk on your way home? His touch, when it happens, feels like an afterthought, like he's reaching for something he's not sure is still there. I catch myself watching him sometimes, wondering when the silence between us got so heavy, so thick, I can almost feel it pressing against my chest. I still love him. That's the part that hurts the most. I see it in the way he looks at me sometimes, like he's trying to figure out where we went wrong. Drew's always been the steady one, the thinker. He's got this quiet strength, this way of noticing when I'm unraveling even before I do. So when he came to me a few days ago, his voice soft but determined, and said, "Let's get away, Eliza. Just us, out in the wild, no distractions, a camping trip to clear our heads." I felt a flicker of something like hope. Maybe this is what we need. A chance to strip everything back, to remember who we are when the world isn't pulling us in 100 directions. He smiled then, a real smile, the kind I haven't seen in weeks, and I nodded, even though part of me wondered if a weekend in the woods could really mend what's fraying at the edges of us. We're not going alone, though. Drew invited Reed, his oldest friend, the kind of guy who walks into a room and owns it without even trying. Reed's a wild card, always has been, charismatic, quick with a joke, the kind of person who can make you laugh even when you don't want to. I've always liked him, but there's an unpredictability to him that makes me a little uneasy, like he's a storm waiting to break. And then there's Tara, someone we both know but barely talk to. She's quiet, reserved, the kind of person who fades into the background unless you're really looking. I don't know why Drew thought to invite her. Maybe he figured a small group would feel more intimate, less like a crowd, but when I asked, he just shrugged and said, "She could use." The drive out to the campsite felt like stepping into a memory I wasn't sure I still owned. I was in the passenger seat. The window rolled down, letting the sharp, clean scent of pine rush over me as we bumped along the winding dirt roads. The tires crunched over unseen gravel, kicking up little clouds of dust that danced in the rearview mirror. Drew was behind the wheel, one hand loose on the steering, the other reaching over for a fleeting moment to rest on mine. His touch was warm, familiar, but it slipped away too soon, like he wasn't sure if it belonged there anymore. I stared out at the endless stretch of trees, their branches knitting together above us, filtering the sunlight into golden patches on the dashboard. Every now and then, the road would curve, and I'd catch a glimpse of the lake in the distance, a sliver of blue so bright it almost hurt to look at. I wanted to say something, to break the quiet hum of the engine with words that mattered. But all I could muster was a soft, "This is gonna be good, right?" Drew glanced at me, his mouth twitching into a half-smile, and nodded. But his eyes didn't quite meet mine, and I felt that familiar ache settle in again. When we finally pulled into the clearing by the lake, it was like the world opened up. The water stretched out before us, a perfect mirror of the sky, so still it looked like you could walk right across it. The air was cooler here, carrying the faint tang of damp earth and wildflowers. I stepped out of the car, my boots sinking slightly into the soft ground, and just stood there for a moment, taking it all in. Behind me, I heard Reed's voice booming as he climbed out of his own car, already cracking a joke about how he was going to catch the biggest fish this weekend. Tara was there too, quietly unloading her gear, her movements precise and deliberate, like she'd done this 100 times before. Drew came up beside me, his shoulder brushing mine as he looked out at the lake. "Pretty perfect, huh?" he said, and for a second I felt a warmth I hadn't in weeks. I nodded, smiling despite myself, and we got to work setting up camp. Putting up the tent was a disaster in the best way. Drew and I fumbled with the poles, trying to figure out which piece went where, until the whole thing collapsed on top of us in a heap of nylon and laughter. I was tangled in the fabric, giggling like a kid, and Drew's face was so close to mine, his eyes bright with something I hadn't seen in a long time. For a moment, it felt like us again, like the weight of everything had lifted. But then Reed called over, "You two need a manual or what?" And the spell broke. I crawled out, brushing dirt off my jeans, and saw him already popping the cork on a bottle of wine, the sun still high in the sky. "It's 5 o'clock somewhere," Reed finished with a grin, holding up the bottle like a trophy. I forced a chuckle, but my mind was already drifting as the day wore on. The sun dipped lower, painting the lake in shades of amber and crimson, and we sat around a crackling fire, the four of us, passing stories and sipping on that wine. Drew's arm rested loosely around my shoulders, a gesture that felt more habitual than heartfelt, and I couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that we were just playing at being okay. Reed kept the conversation alive, his laughter echoing into the trees, while Tara watched the flames with a quiet intensity, her thoughts unreadable. As the night deepened, the air grew crisp, and we retreated to our tents, the glow of the fire fading behind us. Drew and I crawled into our sleeping bag, the space between us feeling wider than the thin fabric of the tent walls. He murmured a soft goodnight, his voice heavy with exhaustion, and turned onto his side, his back to me. I lay there, staring at the shadowy ceiling of the tent, listening to the world outside settle into stillness. The night was so quiet, it felt almost suffocating. Every sound seemed amplified through the flimsy nylon, the gentle rustle of the wind weaving through the pines, the distant hoot of an owl, and Drew's steady, rhythmic breathing beside me. I couldn't sleep, my mind a tangled mess of thoughts about the day, about us, about how even out here, miles from everything, I still felt this unbridgeable distance between us. I shifted restlessly, trying to find a comfortable position, but every movement made the sleeping bag crinkle loudly in the silence. A twig snapped somewhere outside, sharp and sudden, and I held my breath, waiting for another sound, but none came. I told myself it was just an animal, maybe a deer or a raccoon, but my nerves were already on edge, my heart ticking a little faster. Then, in the dead of night, I heard it. The faint, deliberate sound of our tent zipper sliding open. My pulse spiked, a jolt of adrenaline rushing through me. I assumed it was Drew, maybe stepping out for a moment, needing some air or a trip to the woods. But as my eyes adjusted to the dimness, I saw him still lying to my right, his form unmoving, his back a solid silhouette in the dark. He hadn't stirred, hadn't even flinched. My breath caught in my throat as I realized someone else was there. The left side of the sleeping bag shifted, the fabric tugging slightly as a weight settled in beside me. It wasn't Drew. I knew it instantly. The presence was different, heavier somehow, the warmth unfamiliar and invasive. My body went rigid, every muscle locked in place as I felt the air change, thicken with something I couldn't name. A hand brushed against my arm, the touch so slow, so cautious, it felt almost deliberate, like whoever it was wanted to gauge my reaction before moving further. My skin prickled under the contact, a shiver running down my spine. I could feel the heat of their breath, not Drew's. It was deeper, rougher, lacking the familiar cadence I'd grown used to over the years. My mind screamed at me to do something, to turn over, to wake Drew, to shove this stranger away and demand answers. But I didn't. I couldn't. I lay there, frozen, caught in a storm of fear and confusion, and something else. Something darker, something I didn't want to acknowledge. A pull, a current I didn't fight against. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. I just stayed still, my heart hammering so loud I was sure it would wake the entire campsite. The moment stretched on, endless and suffocating, every tiny movement amplified in the silence. The rustle of fabric, the faint shift of weight, the sound of breath so close to my ear, it was deafening through the thin walls of the tent. I could smell a faint trace of cologne, a scent I'd noticed earlier in the day, lingering in the air when Reed had leaned in to hand me a cup of coffee by the fire. Morning creeps in like a thief, pale light seeping through the thin fabric of the tent, casting long, ghostly shadows across the ground. I'm awake before I even realize it, my eyes snapping open to the dim glow, my body still heavy with the weight of last night. Beside me, Drew sleeps on, his face smoothed out in a peacefulness that I haven't seen in months. It's almost painful to look at him like this, so unaware, so trusting, while my stomach twists into knots of guilt that feel like they're clawing their way up my throat. I can't stay here. Not with him so close. Not with the memory of what happened still burning behind my eyes. I need to move, to breathe, to get away from the suffocating air inside this tent before it chokes me. I slip out of the sleeping bag as quietly as I can, holding my breath with every rustle of fabric, terrified that the smallest sound might wake him. My hands tremble as I pull on my boots, the laces slipping through my fingers like they've got a mind of their own. Finally, I ease the zipper of the tent open, just enough to slide through, and step out into the cool dawn. The campsite is eerily still, the kind of quiet that feels like the world is holding its breath. The lake lies flat and glassy under a thin veil of mist, its surface reflecting the gray sky above like a shattered mirror. The air bites at my skin, sharp and clean, but it does nothing to clear the fog in my head. I wrap my arms around myself, trying to hold in the pieces that feel like they're breaking apart, but every step I take away from the tent feels like I'm dragging chains behind me. I spot Reed before he sees me. He's crouched by the fire pit, poking at the embers with a stick, coaxing a few weak flames back to life. The sight of him stops me cold, my feet rooting to the ground as if they've forgotten how to move. He looks up, his eyes catching mine across the clearing, and for a split second, the world narrows to just that look. There's no need for words. Everything is there in the way his gaze holds mine, steady and unapologetic. He knows I know it was him last night. And I know he knows I didn't push him away, didn't scream, didn't do a damn thing to stop it. My chest tightens, a mix of shame and something uglier twisting inside me. He doesn't smirk, doesn't say a word, just gives a small, almost imperceptible nod before turning his attention back to the fire, as if that one gesture is enough to seal whatever this is between us. I stand there, frozen, until the sound of a tent flap rustling behind me snaps me out of it. Tara steps out, rubbing sleep from her eyes, her hair a messy tangle around her shoulders. She looks so normal, so untouched by the undercurrents I feel swirling around me, that it almost makes me angry. "Hey, Eliza," she calls softly, her voice carrying that quiet, unassuming tone I've come to expect from her. "Want help with breakfast?" I force my lips into a smile, but it feels brittle, like it might crack at any second. "No, thanks," I manage, my voice tighter than I mean it to be. "I've got it." She nods, oblivious to the storm raging inside me, and starts rummaging through her bag for something, leaving me to wrestle with the silence again. When Drew finally emerges from our tent, the sun has started to burn through the mist, casting a golden haze over everything. He stretches, his arms reaching for the sky, a lazy grin spreading across his face as he takes in the morning. "Man, I slept like a rock," he says, his voice warm and light in a way that cuts me deeper than I expected. "Must be the forest air. Best sleep I've had in ages." He turns to me, his eyes bright with a kind of ease I can't match, and before I can brace myself, he pulls me into a hug. His arms are strong, familiar, wrapping around me like they always have. But this time, I feel like a fraud in his embrace. I press my face into his shoulder, breathing in the scent of him, wood smoke and something uniquely Drew, and it's all I can do not to crumble right there. I want to cling to this moment, to pretend everything is as it was. But the weight of last night sits like a stone in my chest, heavy and unyielding. I pull back before I'm ready, forcing a smile that doesn't reach my eyes, and mumble something about packing up. Drew doesn't seem to notice the strain in my voice, just nods and starts breaking down the tent, his movements easy and practiced. I turn away, busying myself with meaningless tasks, anything to avoid looking at him for too long. Now, we're on the drive back home, and I'm in the passenger seat again, staring out the window as the world blurs past. Drew's at the wheel, one hand resting casually on the gear shift, the other tapping lightly to the faint hum of the radio. In the back seat, Reed and Tara are chatting about something trivial. Some movie they've both seen, I think. But their voices are just background noise. A distant hum that can't penetrate the storm raging inside me. The trees whip by in streaks of green and brown, their shapes melting into one another, and I fix my gaze on them as if they might hold some kind of answer. But they don't. All I've got is this gnawing, clawing feeling in my chest, a mix of guilt so sharp it hurts to breathe and something else, something I'm ashamed to even name. Because the truth, the ugly, unbearable truth, is that part of me doesn't regret what happened. Part of me liked it. The thrill of it, the forbidden rush of a touch that wasn't Drew's, woke something up inside me, something I haven't felt in years. It's like I've been sleepwalking through my own life, numb to everything, and that moment in the tent, as wrong as it was, shook me awake. I hate myself for even thinking it, but it's there, undeniable, burning under my skin. I steal a glance at Drew, his profile steady and calm as he drives, completely unaware of the war tearing me apart. He's humming softly to the song on the radio, some old tune we used to sing together on long drives like this, back when everything felt simpler. His face is relaxed, the lines of stress I've grown so used to seeing smoothed out, and it cuts me deeper than I can say. He trusts me. He's always trusted me, with a kind of faith I never questioned until now. And here I am, sitting beside him, carrying a secret that could shatter everything we've built. I've betrayed him in the worst way, not just with what happened, but with the way I let it happen. The way I didn't stop it when I had the chance. I've betrayed our marriage, this bond I swore was unbreakable, the promises we made under a sky full of stars all those years ago. I can still see that day, the way he looked at me, like I was his whole world. And I've betrayed myself too, because I thought I was stronger than this, thought I knew who I was. But I don't. Not anymore. I turn my gaze back to the window, my reflection faint against the glass, and I force myself to face the rest of it. The silence between Drew and me, the distance that's grown over these past months. It's not just on him. I've been telling myself it's his fault, that he's the one who pulled away, who stopped reaching for me. But I built that wall just as much as he did, brick by brick, without even noticing. I stopped trying, stopped fighting for us, and let the quiet settle in like a fog I couldn't see through. What happened with Reed wasn't just a mistake, a momentary lapse. It was a fracture, a crack in the illusion that we were still whole, still the couple we used to be. It tore away the veil I'd been hiding behind, showing me just how far we've drifted. And now, I'm back in our house, the familiar creak of the floorboards under my feet grounding me in a way that feels both comforting and suffocating. Days have turned into weeks since that camping trip, and on the surface, life has slipped back into its old rhythm. Drew heads to work each morning with his thermos of coffee, giving me a quick kiss on the forehead before he goes. I busy myself with the mundane, laundry, emails, dinners that I cook more out of habit than desire. We talk about the weather, the news, the little things that fill the space between us. But beneath it all, there's a shift, a subtle but undeniable change that I feel in every interaction. The distance between us isn't just there anymore, it's sharper, more deliberate, at least on my side. I've put it there, carved it out with the secret I carry, and I don't know how to bridge it, or if I even want to. I notice it in the smallest moments, the ones that used to feel so natural. When Drew reaches for my hand as we're watching TV, I flinch, just for a split second, before forcing myself to relax into his touch. It's not that I don't want his warmth. It's that I don't feel I deserve it. My skin prickles with the memory of another touch, one I didn't push away, and it taints every gesture of affection Drew offers. I see it in the way I dodge Reed's calls too. Drew mentioned the other day that Reed had tried to get in touch, something about planning a barbecue, and I felt my stomach drop. I mumbled an excuse about being busy, but the truth is, I can't bear to hear his voice. I'm terrified of what I might hear in it. Regret, indifference, or worse, a reminder of that night. So I let the phone ring, watching the screen light up with his name until it goes dark again, my heart pounding in my chest. There are times when I catch myself staring into space, lost in my own head. I'll be standing at the kitchen counter, a knife in hand, halfway through chopping vegetables, and suddenly I'm back in that tent. The darkness presses in, the air thick with tension, and I can almost feel the weight of someone beside me, the ghost of a moment I can't escape. I blink hard, shake my head, try to pull myself back to the present, but it's like a film reel that keeps playing over and over. Drew will walk in sometimes, catch me in one of these dazes, and ask if I'm okay. I force a smile, nod, say I'm just tired, but I wonder if he sees through it. I wonder if he senses the shadow that's settled over me, even if he doesn't know its shape. And yet, as much as it tears at me, I can't bring myself to fully regret what happened. That's the hardest part to admit. The part that keeps me up at night, staring at the ceiling while Drew sleeps beside me. Because that night, as wrong as it was, forced me to see the cracks in my marriage I'd been pretending weren't there. I'd spent so long telling myself we were just in a rough patch, that things would get better on their own, but I was blind to how deep the fractures ran. What happened in the tent didn't create those cracks. It exposed them, raw and jagged, and now I can't look away. I see them in every forced conversation, every moment of silence that stretches too long. But the cost of that clarity is steep. A boundary was crossed, a trust broken, even if Drew doesn't know it. I've lost something fundamental, a piece of us that I took for granted, and I don't know if I can ever get it back. It's a quiet evening now, the kind that used to feel peaceful, but now just feels heavy. Drew is on the couch, a book open in his lap, his glasses slipping down his nose as he reads. The lamplight casts a soft glow over him, highlighting the familiar lines of his face, the way his brow furrows slightly when he's lost in a story. I watch him for a moment, feeling the weight lift just a little, as if his quiet presence alone could bring back the peace I thought I'd lost. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.